Hey guys, it's Honest Youth Pastor. We have Kim Tabor with us today, and she is going to be sharing with us a little bit about strip-free ministries. Is that correct?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
So, just so you guys kind of know why we're doing this podcast, it's because we want to, over here at the Honest Youth Pastor, we want to kind of give back a little bit. And so we've partnered with Kim and Strip-Free Ministries to kind of give all of the profits that we get from the sales of the Honest Youth Pastor merchandise and everything from the shop to this ministry. But we want you guys to kind of help and be a part of it as well. There's a big community of you guys out there always, asking about different ministries and things like that. So we partnered with Strip Free Ministries, and she's here today to tell us a little bit about that. So Kim, I don't know if anybody knows who you are specifically. If you want to give us a little bit of a background on just yourself before we get into, the ministry.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for even doing this and giving us this opportunity. My goodness, this is fantastic. Yeah, so my husband, Brian, and I, we have a not-for-profit. Brian is also known in many circles as Mr. Worship Leader Probs, for those who don't know. So technically I'm Mrs. Probs,
There you go.
but yes, but yeah, so we have a not-for-profit ministry called Tabor Ministries, and we've had that for about 18 years and traveled the country doing worship concerts and conferences all over the country in different churches, and worship has always been the foundation of our ministry. And then through the years, God opened up a door for us to be able to do women's conferences and for me to speak. And I have a book, and our conferences are called Finally Free. And one of the things that I teach in those conferences is that I firmly believe that God sets each of us free from something for something. So I went on a journey to kind of discover what my for something was. And I tried some different things along the way, wonderful, wonderful ministry opportunities, and volunteered at some homeless shelters and domestic violence shelters and with some youth organizations. But nothing necessarily felt like that fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard about another organization in Indiana that does something very similar to what Strip Free does. And I can talk a little bit more about what Strip Free does. But Strip Free ended up becoming my for something.
Gotcha. So how long have you been doing the Strip Free thing?
We have probably about 6 years now.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow. So you got some time there. So
Mm-hmm.
so obviously you connected, you saw that ministry that was doing something similar.
Mm-hmm.
So that initially just kind of got you interested. What kind of got you over the hump there where you're like, I think I want to start something just like this?
Well, it's interesting how God works. When you look back on your life, you can see how he started planting seeds in certain areas. At least that's what I can look back and see so clearly now. But back in 2001, literally within the first few weeks that Brian and I launched Tabor Ministries, back then it was just a worship and concert ministry. One of the first churches we went to was a church in Fort Myers, Florida. And we got done leading worship, and the pastor was getting ready to preach. And we sat down on the front pew. And he said, "I want to introduce somebody to you, the church. This is a ministry that we support." And again, this is all the way back in 2001. He introduced a woman named Jeannie Turner. And she had an organization called One Way Out. And she talked about going into the strip clubs in the city of Fort Myers and talked about the ministry that she has there and what God had been doing. And when I heard her speak, I literally felt it was almost like an arrow shot through my heart. And I thought, oh my goodness, to be a part of something like that, that would just be so amazing. But how in the world? How, I don't even know how to do anything like this. How in the world? So I kind of tabled that and didn't think too much about that until many years later, when I was looking for something. And
Mm-hmm.
the next thing I know, God brought all of this back to my memory at just the right time, and um, yeah, so we have stripped free now.
Gotcha. So, how did you? Obviously, that was a matter of, I mean, bringing it back. You found out you really had a passion for it. You knew that was kind of the thing. What did you do to get that started, and what do you guys currently kind of do right now in that
Yes.
ministry?
Well, basically, we go into the strip clubs in the city of Indianapolis, um, and we bring gifts for the women who work in the clubs so that they know that they are loved and they matter. At the foundation, what we do is we develop friendships and relationships with the women who work there. And we walk alongside them however they want us to or allow us to. And it's amazing to see how God eventually allows doors to open for us to be able to tell them about the one that has changed our lives, about Jesus.
Mhm.
Um, and so we help them. We kind of serve as a bridge builder. We introduce them to other relationships that we have for if they need if they're looking for a different job, or if they need counseling, or if they're maybe they need a food pantry, or health services, or addiction issues, whatever it is. We try to connect them with the right resources in Indianapolis. But everything is really we are obviously a faith-based ministry, and we will walk with our friends, and the women in the clubs, they really are our friends. We'll walk with them in the hopes of getting to introduce them to Jesus, but we know that some of our friends won't be interested in that, and that's okay too, because we're called to love no matter what, and to be there for our friends in the industry.
Gotcha. So, kind of to, if you have maybe a story or two here, just to make it real. So, um, two things. One, how were you received by the clubs? That sounds like an interesting proposition for them to let you guys in. And two,
Mhm.
what kind of, just if you can share, obviously probably not any names or anything, but just maybe some fruits of that ministry that you've seen so far.
Yeah. You know, going that's the one of the biggest questions I get is, how are you allowed into these establishments? And we make it very clear. First of all, we get permission to come in. And the clubs that we go into, we've been in all of the same clubs for about 6 years now, roughly. Um, and uh, we get permission, and we make it clear that we are not trying to uh, take anybody out of the industry. We are not trying to drag women out of the strip clubs. Um, that's not what we're about. And we are very respectful, and we let management know we understand that this is your place of business. Whether we agree with the business or not, that doesn't really matter, because we're on their territory, and we don't get in the way of anything. We're very respectful. And so we've even had management from certain clubs that have come and asked us to come in
Wow.
to their
Hmm.
clubs, because the gals, they call us the church ladies, and I had to say I'm not thrilled with that, that
Hmm.
terminology, only because church lady, that can be a good thing for some people and not such a good thing for other people,
Yeah.
depending on how you look at it. So, but we're told that when the church ladies come in, that the girls are in a better mood, they're happier, and we know that that really doesn't have anything to do with us going in. It's the Holy Spirit in us that is that's coming in and making all the difference. And so it's the Holy Spirit in us that they're drawn to. So management, I think there are certain managers that like to be able to say, if the women are having any issues, I don't want to deal with that. Talk to the church ladies about that.
Yeah. Hmm.
So really, we try to make sure we keep a good relationship with the management and the clubs, and so yeah, that's always an interesting question. How are you allowed in, and aren't they afraid you're
Hmm.
going to take all of the women who work there? And one of the very sad realities too, though, is that there is a long line of women should somebody choose to leave the industry, there's a long line of women waiting to get in.
Hmm.
Um, and because it's easy money, and it's there are so many misconceptions. I will say this too: before I started 6 years ago, I knew nothing about the women who worked in this kind of industry, and there are so many misconceptions. And it's no little girl grows up dreaming of doing this for
Hmm.
a living. There is a long road of brokenness and trauma that leads most women to this industry. That's for sure.
Gotcha. So, what have you seen come out of this ministry so far as maybe some lives changed, some relationships that you maybe would have never thought would have happened, but you've seen that occur now because of your guys' willingness to just obey the Lord's calling into this place that most churches don't go.
Yes, my friends in the industry are some of my most precious relationships. I love the women that I've met there. And um, just a quick story: one of the very first women that actually came out of the industry and said, she ended up taking us up on our invitation to come to an Easter weekend service. And she literally um, was working on Saturday night, and then got up and told us later she didn't really want to come, but she had promised us that she was going to be there.
Yeah.
And she ended up coming on that Easter Sunday morning, and she ended up giving her heart to Jesus. And then she looked at me and she said, I can never go back. So then there was this, oh my goodness, now what does that mean? Because
Yeah.
this was her livelihood.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of trial by fire, our very first friend, of getting everything
Yeah.
situated and ready and prepared to be able to help her. But here's the really phenomenal thing: is with every woman is very different and individual in what their needs are. But I can say that it is, when we continue to hear that if God's called you, he's going to equip you, that is so true. Because even though back then I felt like I had nothing to offer, well, all of
Hmm.
a sudden, the things that I needed, the people that I needed, or the resources that I needed, or the answers that I needed for this precious woman, God started dropping those things in my lap. And I was so grateful. And it helped to, he did that as a gift to me too, to remind me, hey, you're not the one doing the heavy lifting in all this. I'm the one doing the heavy
Got it.
lifting in
Yeah.
this.
Hmm.
I've got all the answers. I know what she needs,
Hmm.
and I'm going to supply what she needs. And so I'm very careful to make sure that every woman that we meet, should they use any of our resources, that every woman knows, you know, um, we are just a conduit that God uses. God, the one who loves you more than life itself, he's the one that's providing all of this for you, all of it.
Awesome. So obviously we'll provide a link in the description and stuff, but there's a way that they can donate directly to this ministry. Obviously we'll provide that link. And then like we've talked about, if you guys don't want to donate directly, all the profits from the Honest Youth Pastor merch store are going to go toward this as well for the month of March. So you guys can do that as well. But so kind of tell us right now, as far as when people do donate and where that money goes, what are you guys doing with it now? And then what are like your big dreams of like, this would be amazing if we could do this?
Well, actually, God is in the process of making one of our big dreams come true right now. And um, if there's money that is donated right now, we have a brand new building and property that is getting ready to open. And we are so excited. And the focus of this building is going to be Jesus and jobs. And so this facility, it's going to be rolled out in stages. During the first stage, no one will actually be living at the facility, but it will be used as a resource center for our friends, and a place where we can gather together and get to know each other outside of the four walls of those dark environments. a place where we can share meals together, and we can have we can do counseling and support group, and even Bible studies and job training, and helping our friends get GEDs if they need that. So we are so excited about that. Every penny that is donated will go to help in opening up this new facility, and we're hoping to have it opened, the doors open sometime in May.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, the building is being refurbished right now, and that whole thing, I'll save that story for another time, but how God made all of that happen. I had a vision casting meeting. 35 people came. I said, I've got no money and I've got no property and no building, but I have a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 week later, this property went on the market, and it's perfect. It's perfect and exactly what we need. So
Awesome.
we're excited.
Fantastic. Good deal. So I guess to end here, if there's anything, is there anything you kind of want to end with as far as just kind of telling them, maybe if somebody wants to reach out to you because they're like, hey, I'm not in Indiana, but I am in wherever state, and this sounds really interesting.
Mm.
How can they get a hold of you? How can they follow just this process as far as what you guys are doing, even with the building, as far as social media and whatnot?
Yes. Well, we have a stripped free Facebook page, and also Instagram, stripped free. And they can also follow my personal page. I talk a lot about strip free on my personal Instagram, Kim Tabor, and Facebook it's Kim Gar Tabor, Gahr Tabor. So those are some great, and if anybody wants to reach out to me, they can message me on those formats, or info@taborministries.org. That email address goes right to me. So yeah, that's a great way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. All right, guys. So what I'm hoping to do here, and the whole reason we're doing this podcast and this video, is to kind of encourage you guys to say, hey, we're always talking about faith. We're always talking about what the Lord has said, go forth, tell people about this great love of how he set us free. And this is sort of a tangible way that we're kind of trying out, say, hey, here's a way to do that. And we wanted to partner with Kim and this ministry, because not a lot of churches go to these places where Kim's going right now and her team's going. But obviously, these are places where Jesus would go as well, and just spread that love. So obviously in the description, we'll have some links, everything down there as well. And I would encourage you, we'll have actually a contest I'll be putting out a little bit later after we drop this podcast, after you guys are watching, to encourage you to follow those pages as well. But thank you, Kim, for your time. I really appreciate it, just on here explaining kind of what God's called you to do, and just the amazing work you've already seen him do in providing a building that maybe 6 years ago you would have never even thought would be a thing. So that's
amen.
amazing.
And thank you so much for even shedding light on this, and for talking about this ministry, because when it comes down to it, every woman, no matter whether they're sitting in a church pew or in an office somewhere, or if they're sitting in a strip club, every single woman needs to know that they are loved and they matter. And that's the truth.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you later, Kim.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.